Hello everyone, I'm Michael, and today, I'm going to tell you a story. Men of Reddit who proposed and she said no. What happened afterwards with your life? Story 1. She said yes on the second proposal, and now we're divorced. Edit. Reddit is such a weird place. All the carefully thought out posts and comments get zero recognition. And then this random off-the-cuff remark is my most liked comment. Glad you all got a kick out of it. For those wondering, I've been single for a year. I spent last night with a smart, beautiful woman and had a blast. Life is good. Story 2. My mother told my father no 3 times. On the 3rd time, he got wasted at a local bar and basically started pouring his heart out to anyone who'd listen. Mind you, it's a very small village in the Italian Alps, and my father barely spoke Italian, and no one in the village spoke English, including my mother. Word got back to my mom about the said American at the bar, so she went to find him, and she told him she'd marry him. My parents celebrated their 44th anniversary last month. Story 3. I have a story about this. My friend had been with his girlfriend B for years, so he decided he wanted to propose. What he didn't know is that B was also thinking about proposing to him. A proposed first, and B freaked out because she had already said her proposal and bought a ring, so she said no. Over the next week, B freaked out more and more and refused to answer A's calls and messages. Then decided to use the money he had saved up to buy a plane ticket to Europe. What was supposed to be a 3-month trip through Western Europe turned out to be a year-long trip around the world. One day, A says that he's coming back and B decides to go and wait for him at the airport and propose to him there. It turns out that, while being in Peru, A met a girl and they fell in love almost immediately and got married in Peru. 5 years later, and his Peruvian wife are still happily married and recently had a baby, while B hasn't still quite forgiven herself for ruining her relationship with A. Story 4. My mom actually said no to my dad's proposal when they were younger. Not because they weren't in love, but because she wasn't sure if it was something she actually wanted to do, rather than something that society expected of her or whatever. They still stayed together and had kids, hence why you're reading this now. And then when my dad was terminally ill a few years ago, my mom plucked up the courage and asked him, just to get her back after all those years. He said no before taking her up on the offer a few days later. He died a happy man. Story 5. We met in her home country of Germany while I was traveling. I knew I was in love. We dated long distance for a while. Me flying to Europe, her flying to the US. I suggested marriage so we could be together. She said no a few times. I didn't press. But I was patient and not being pushy. I knew she was worth the wait. Then it hit her that's how we could be together. If we got married, we could live in a country together. The difficulties of being born on a different patch of dirt. A few years later, I'm still married to my best friend and living with her in Germany. Not all no stay no. Life goes on. Story 6. My dad proposed to a woman who said no. My dad was a violent alcoholic, and she said she couldn't be with him unless he got clean. Took him a little while, but he did it. He wound up meeting my mom through a matchmaker, and they've been married 25 years. If that woman never said no to him, he never would have gotten clean. It was the lowest point in his life. But it all brought him to my mom, who makes him happier than ever. My dad talks to her sometimes. She got married to someone else, and they had a son who died from a medical condition. Story 7. This is the story of my parents. My dad asked my mom to marry him several times. She said no several times. One day my dad asked my mom to marry him, yet again. She said yes. He freaked out and left her apartment and dumped her. 3 weeks later, he hated his life without her and begged her to take him back and marry him. They were married 9 months later for 16 years until my mom passed from cancer. They loved each other so much and had such a deep appreciation for each other. That was 25 years ago. My dad has not remarried. No one will ever come close to my mama. Story 8. Dated a woman for over 2 years and popped the question. First time she said, I don't know. A couple months later, I asked her again. She said maybe. I was pretty bent out of shape. But then I found out she was sleeping with several of my friends, so I dodged a bullet there really. Story 9. We received a letter from the immigration office saying that she was lacking some documents. At the moment, we were stressed. Both of us, with work and study, and none of us were sufficiently fluent in German to decipher this kind of language. We went to the university office for foreign students. The lady in charge translated to us the letter badly, telling us that even presenting the documents, they would proceed with the deportation process. We panicked. Looking for some more help, we ended in the city hall. With the adrenaline rush, I proposed to her in quite a loud voice. If we get married, could we stop the deportation? I asked to the poor guy in the information office. I can't remember if he gave us an answer. I want to marry her. Will you marry me? She started laughing. I started laughing. The guy in the office gave us the telephone to the pertinent department and asked us to call. We went out of the city hall and we couldn't stop laughing. She said to me, "Well, thank you, but let's wait a bit." After the weekend, we went to immigration office and the people there explained which documents were missing, how to get them. She wasn't denied the visa and we kept living in the way we planned. It was intense and, in retrospective, really funny. Addendum: we are not married and never planned, but we live together. She got a job that provides her with a visa. Soon, she will present herself to citizenship exam. Story 10. I was a young Marine. I was only home during the weekends. Was dating this girl for about a year from my hometown. When I asked, she said yes. Her dad, former Navy, kept saying we should wait. We put it off for a bit longer. Fast forward another year. She dumped me. Father informs me she has been sleeping with a lot of guys, like more than 50 over the 2 years we dated, and was very happy I didn't marry her, and apologizes to me for her behavior. She then totally ghosting everyone, including her family, for about 6 months. Find out she moved 7 years away and was living under a house, not a basement, under a house with her new BF. She calls her mom to come get her. Mother and father asked me to go get her and bring her home. Good times, good times. Story 11. My mom and dad were not married and wanted a kid and had me. My dad, being Catholic and Hispanic, decided he wanted to be married to my mom and proposed. She said no because she had been divorced from her first husband for very long and now had 3 young kids and preferred to stay not married. He threatened to leave her and got on his motorcycle and started to drive away until my mom chased him down and gave in, leading to what my parents call the voodoo wedding. The same day. Story 12. I asked her right out of high school, but she wasn't ready. We stayed together, went to college at the same school, spent the first year in separate dorms, then moved in together. Got married a few years later. Our 20th is coming up. Story 13. In 2017, Google came up with this idea to allow you to make photo books out of your Google Photos account. My girlfriend and I had been dating for almost 2 years, and I knew she was the one I wanted to marry, so I created this wonderful photo book of all of our selfies together and ended it with a page made out of a photo I generated that said, "Will you marry me?" I then proceeded to put all these things into an album and build the photo book. What didn't occur to me at the time was that the album I put these in was a shared album, and the other person gets a notification when you add new photos to it. And the other person that the album was shared with, my girlfriend. That evening, we had dinner and it all came out. She saw the photo. She wasn't ready. There were a few reasons why, but they were good reasons and smart reasons, mostly to do with timing, family, and finances. We weren't breaking up, we just weren't getting engaged at that time. A year later, we have fully discussed the concept of getting married. We went ring shopping. She picked her own ring, and by the time I actually did propose, we both knew what her answer would be. We celebrated our first wedding anniversary in April. It seems to have worked out so far. And the photo book is on a shelf to my left as we speak. Story 14. My mom told my dad no when he proposed to her, even though they were already living together. She thought he was impotent, and it wasn't until she got pregnant that she said yes. In retrospect, I wish my parents had decided early in their relationship that they can barely stand each other. Story 15. I spoke to her about it beforehand, and she seemed really keen on the idea. So I decided to propose about a week after in front of all our friends. She was so shocked she picked me up off my knee and shooed me away. Most of our friends were confused because everyone knew it was going to happen, and she said she was excited for it. I didn't know what to do. It was all really embarrassing, and later she explained she didn't mean no, she just didn't know what to say and was scared. She said yes after apologizing profusely, and just this year we celebrated our 9th anniversary. Story 16. We'd been dating for a year and a half, and I was due to move out on orders. Was in the army. She suggests we get married. I said, no way. I was going off to school, army type, for 6 months, then a year on a deployment to the Middle East. It just wouldn't work. She was calm, and then said, you think I'll be a burden to all of that, but I'll actually be a help. While just seconds earlier all I could think of was what a pain in the ass it would be to get married and leave, and now it, for whatever reason, seemed perfectly reasonable that she was right. We got married a week later at the courthouse. I was 22. Last month, we had a nice socially distant dinner party for our 29th anniversary with our 2 amazing kids and a few friends. Story 17. My mother turned my father down, but didn't outright break up with him. She just wasn't sure about the marriage idea. She valued her independence and was nervous about commitment. No hard feelings, though. He called up the next day when she'd had more time to think about it, and she said yes after all. They celebrated 32 years of marriage last month. Story 18. She said yes as I had a special occasion planned, one of those observation wheels, and I proposed at the very top, and we were in our way to a family event, and I had a ring made and everything. Then a few days later, she said no. Everything fell apart. I was distraught. We continued dating for a while, but it was long distance, other side of the world. When I visited, it would be super awkward. Eventually, dad kicked me out. Was flying standby, and was stuck in an airport for 4 days. Took me years to recover. Now I am happily married, and am glad it never worked out. I was not in a good place when I met her, and her family were super controlling. It would never have worked. The woman I married is super cool and is my best friend. Turned out better than expected. Story 19. We were dating for a little over a year, but I was so sure she was the one. I drove 2 hours to see her at her college and went on a beautiful winter night walk and proposed. She looks me right in the eyes and said, "Oh, you thought this was serious?" Well, I don't know how to say this other than I have been saying other people. Well, actually, I have been seeing other women. I was stunned. I got up, put the ring in my pocket, and walked to my car, got in and drove away, never looking back, crying the whole time. Haven't seen or spoken with her in 7 years, even though she has tried countless times to reach out. Now it's a story I tell friends who are nervous about asking their significant others to marry them, reminding them that even if they say no, it could be worse. Story 20. Not me, but a guy I knew proposed to his then girlfriend in a restaurant. Made sure to have a friend record it. She walked out when he popped the question and pretty much ghosted him. He started drinking, found a new passion in gambling, and gambled all his savings away. He ended up living on money of the state, works a garbage picker job now, and almost set his house on fire at least 4 times that I know of by making food and falling asleep drunk. He was an interesting guy, friendly to some, but the state is just sad. Hope at some point he picks up his life again. Haven't heard of him in years though, so no idea where he is now. Story 21. We were living together. I asked. She said no, I love you but I need to think about it. I don't think I'm ready yet. Can you give me some time and ask later? A few months go by. I ask again, same response. A few more months, same deal. A couple more weeks, and then she says, "Hey, what do you think of us getting married?" I replied, "That's an excellent idea. Why didn't I think of that? Our 39th anniversary is next month." Story 22. Very first girlfriend ever. Started dating at 17. After 6 years of dating, I proposed. She said no, I'm sorry. I asked why. She said, "I've been thinking about this for a while but didn't talk to you about it. I found someone else." Then she broke up with me right then and there. I asked if she cheated, and she said no. We're just friends right now. But he makes me happy when I'm with him, and you just don't. You used to. But not anymore. I tried sabotaging their relationship when I found him begging her for nudes, tattled to her ultra-Christian parents that he was twice her age, which he is, and did everything I could to be the insane one. Finally, realized what I was doing, apologized, promised to never talk to her or her family ever again. I sold the ring and used the money to buy a guitar and a boatload of weed and spiraled out of control for 3 years. Flunked all my classes, got a dead-end job at a construction gig, slowly descended into borderline alcoholism. Couldn't leave the house or go to work or do my job without being high. Gained a ton of weight. Let myself go. Finally, contemplated suicide. Planned it out with a 20-page instruction manual on how to make it painless, not screw it up, and not hurt anyone in the process. Never went through with it because I kept getting scared and spending my suicide fund on weed and alcohol. Finally broke down and told my parents all of this. Asked for help. Spent another year in a rehab program with a therapist. Got out and have been clean for 3 years by this September. And still wake up at 3 a.m. feeling sick every couple of months for the way I treated her after having spent 6 years telling her that I loved her. But that's all over now, and all I can do is learn from it, promise to be better, and keep going. So now I'm turning 29 in a week, still living at home with parents, and constantly battling self-loathing and anxiety while working a job for $9.25 an hour. But I pay my parents $300 a month to stay with them, and I'm going back to school, taking the minimum number of credit hours per semester since I'm paying for it out of pocket, and I work full-time and overtime when I can get it, but slowly drag my GPA from a 1.28 to a 2.64 and can start getting help next semester instead of paying for all of it out of pocket. Now, I also lost a ton of weight during the pandemic and weigh just 189. Now, in rehab, I dropped to 220, but I was closer to 245 to 250 before that. Safe to say I won't be worth dating for a long time, but maybe when I get my degree under my belt and finish growing and learning, I can get a self-sustaining job, I can move out and truly start over.